to reading textbooks and note-taking. Raise your hand if this describes you. After purchasing a textbook, you leave it on your desk and don't open it again until you have to resell it. What do you say? Up high! All right, store it in your closet. What do you think? How about wait until your first reading assignment before you open that book? I would be one of those. And flip through the book. Preview the titles, headers, chapter summaries, graphics, and nobody good. This workshop is for you. All right. The whole point, of course, is to be an active reader. You're not going to like necessarily all of your classes, but if you can remember to keep yourself engaged, and we have tips for that, think about what you already know about the subject, okay? Ask yourself questions before you start to read, during your reading, if anything pops into your head, and of course after reading, so that you're digesting it, you're processing this information. All of this is engaging your brain intimately with the new information. Think and predict about what might happen next from a section. This is particularly good for history because you kind of want to get yourself anticipating what might be coming next. It will stick in your brain better. And read with a purpose, always. Never waste your time reading without a purpose. Could be as simple as, I want to just escape from real life, that's no problem. But for textbooks, know why you're reading. And of course, answer questions. The best way to study a textbook, and you will be studying, use a system. There are lots of systems. SQ3R is a proven winner. First, as it's an acronym, you survey, and that's the S. Then you question, and all these are steps we'll go through. Then you read, record, recite, and recall. Those are the 4 R's, all right? One nice thing, this recall review thing is wonderful because if you do practice with this system, you will never cram, ever. How do you like that for good news, hey? Mm-hmm. No last minute, all night long reading your textbook. None. It won't be necessary. Okay. Survey is a pre-reading activity, so you have to be relaxed here. You're not sitting down for hours and going to pour through this chapter or even a section. You want to go ahead and kind of figure where does this chapter information fit in the big picture of the class, or history, or humanities, whatever. And then you want to assess the chapter. How long is this going to take you to learn? How much will you have to schedule into your time management calendar, so that you allow enough time? Are there new concepts to you? Is it all new? A little more time will be necessary. Is it just text, or does it have a lot of pictures and graphics that are going to be enjoyable and pow, instant information? Those will be easier and quicker for you to learn. And is it 300 pages for that chapter? Some anatomy chapters are. Or is it maybe 64 pages? Definitely doable. You need to know that ahead of time. Now you start actually flipping through your pages of your textbook, and you will look at the titles. You'll look at the learning objectives if they're there. Usually they are in the textbook. Textbooks are the best books to be reading for information because they are organized to help you. Usually around SQ3R, believe it or not. All the chapter outlines, if they have them, summaries. There's headers of each section, subheaders. These are all usually in bold or italics. You'll know when you see a header or subheader, and graphics. If there's a summary, even during the pre-reading section, go ahead and kind of read through it because it's information that will help you be engaged, number one, and understand how the chapter is organized so that you can go ahead and process as you begin to read. All right, key terms. These you will need to read because if you don't know the key terms, how are you going to process the new information, right? Makes sense. Then the next step, question. You want to formally go through and start questioning because you won't do this automatically. Eventually you will, but in the beginning, turn each title or subhead into a question. And who, what, when, where, why, and how are just some ways to get started in this process. If you can answer any, all, one, whatever, that will be a good start, okay? And here's how to do it. If you see a title or a header, communication defined, here's how you turn it into a question. What is the definition of communication, right? And then you can start to read. This is, there are 4 steps to this R business, and they are all different, and you should probably do them at different times. Don't try to cram 3 or 4 of them in at one time. So for the first read, you will be thinking about answering your questions. One tip, if you think you're brand new to this, go ahead and write your questions down as you go through the survey. That's a minor point. It's no problem, but usually our brains won't always remember the questions. Begin to make connections between ideas, and that would be ideas in the chapter as you go, ideas that you had from your previous knowledge. Start making connections with what you already know, what you're trying to learn from the book, what maybe you've already picked up from class lecture. All right, step 2 of the R's, record. And notice the reread. A lot of people don't want to notice that reread. It's very important. After you've read things, kind of answering the questions, now you reread with that major purpose of getting every bit of information out of that chapter. And to help yourself remember, you will be recording. And that simply is writing down. Answer your questions. This is when you have your notebook open or your pages. And you will write other questions or new ideas that occur to you because, oh, look at that connection. I'll have to ask the teacher that kind of thing. Any of that sort of things. Or questions to yourself. And annotate those new questions in your notes. Oh, there you are, right? Margin notations, which is called annotating. Highlight, if you like highlighting. We'll go through all of these. Underline, or any other note-taking strategy that you prefer. And we'll go through a couple of exercises at the end so that you can try a few out and see what you like best. And remember, if you're familiar with all of them, each one will be ideally suited to a certain kind of a textbook or information. So you'll be able to choose. Third step in the R's, recall. And this is when you begin to remember. You'll be looking at your notes, not necessarily the textbook, because your notes should be already reduced information, but you are remembering everything you have read, and you will be testing yourself. Answers to your questions. Can you remember the questions and the answers? Can you remember the main ideas of the chapters? Now, if it's a big chapter, go section by section. That's not a problem. Break it up, whatever's good for you. It doesn't have to be a whole chapter at a time. And of course, remember those vital connections, because if you have essay tests or whatever, those connections are what the teacher is looking for. What has your brain done with the information? Your original thinking. And of course, conclusions that you have made on your own, excellent, or that you might remember from the text. It doesn't matter. Review. This is the nice part, because you don't need your textbook any longer. You use only your notes. And some people reduce even further and have cards. And they can carry those around in their purse, their pocket, their knapsack, whatever. You might need a note or two about a question. I found that usually I remember all the questions, no problem. And of course, all the answers. And the associations, which is connections. Original ideas. Graphic interpretations. If you can draw your own graphs from the information, more power to you. It means you've got that information. And practical applications, not always useful for every class, but for many. I mean, you are taking these classes to get information to get a career, so you might want to seriously think about practical applications. If you need help, get a study group going, not a problem. And of course, possible answers to possible essay questions. All right, reviewing notes. This is how often, just kind of a go-to schedule. You'll find out how much you need once you know the information, how tough it is, if you're doing well self-monitoring. Okay, immediately after the lecture or after reading the chapter, as soon as possible. It's not going to be right after. What's the point? That's still the reading, right? But maybe that evening before bed. And then daily for about a week. You just kind of whip through those notes, the same thing, or your cards, you know. Twice a week for a couple of, that should be weeks. And monthly until the final exam. Once a month. Is that not incredible? But do that good job of reviewing and remembering everything that you can connect. And occasionally, if you have to, you can go back to your textbook to just make sure you're remembering accurate information. Okay, now we're going to go into note-taking skills. These will work for lectures or textbooks. First off, choose a particular strategy, and then you can try different ones for different courses and see what you like best or what works best. There is the Cornell system of note-taking. You can highlight and annotate. You can outline after you've read. Or there's mapping. Cornell is probably the most well-known, so we're going to present it to you first. It is very directed, all right? You are to make this kind of eye thing going on here with your note paper. And you use a lot of paper. Always put your name and the date in the book or the chapter that it is. And the more information you get up there, the better, because if you've ever dropped your pages somewhere and wondered how they go back together, this will definitely help you get it all back in order. Now, the thing to do is start with keywords and ideas as you're reading. This is what you're recording. And go ahead and do the lots of information right here in the biggest section of the page. And you can use whatever size paper you want. And go ahead and then, as you're starting to remember and reduce and recall, just make main ideas, key questions, and you can add that in later, or supply that if your teacher is a great lecturer and says, and now we're going to do whatever, and then you can just put those in there too. At the bottom, don't forget this because it's at the bottom. This is a summary of your notes in your own words that proves to yourself, self-monitoring, that you have got this information, okay? All right, we're going to just kind of look at how you would take Cornell notes for this communication textbook. And then we started off with this. Okay, this is Cornell notes. A little bit different, because you can see there's no summary at the bottom, but you can add that in. Over here, here's the definitions, and these were like the key words, okay? That's one page. Don't crush yourself in. Especially if you read before lectures, you want to leave plenty of space in case the professor brings up something extra not in the textbook, and you can insert it wherever it needs to be. Okay, highlighting. It's always fun, and a lot of people really kind of use it as their steady diet. Not appropriate for everything, I just want to warn you. Okay, do you think that's enough highlighting for a chapter? No, of course not. Probably one phrase isn't going to do to summarize all the information on that page of that book. Too little. Okay, anybody do this? I see a lot of people doing this, and that happens usually because they don't understand the function of highlighting. Okay, this is way too much. I mean, you might as well just reread all the time, right? All right, this is just about perfect. There you go. But there's a few extra things on this page for you to notice, too. 2 colors, hey? You can use one color for all the headings, and then another color for the details, or for the answers to questions that you might have, however you want to do it. And also, I want you to notice the little red bits, which we haven't covered yet, but those are annotations, just notes in the margin of things you either understand, don't understand, like this one, definition, a reminder like, this is pretty important, so you can zoom right in on that red and check it out. And then this is to ask the instructor, and who knows what that is, whatever your system is, so that you understand what's going on. When you're using Cornell notes, you really can't share them because it's so personal, it's not going to really help anybody else. You can be kind and give them anyway, but they're going to wonder what all this stuff is. So, Now we're going to move on to outlining. Anybody have questions on highlighting? Okay. You can highlight in your notes, too, when you start the reduction process or the recall, and that's reducing your notes to just a few words from there. Now you're getting down to really good student, and it will help you. The outlining is a little more complete. This is a lot of the record, and you can do part of it during your first read. You can add to it during your second read. This is using mainly the headings and subheadings, and then details, main points, supporting information from each section. So number 1, that would probably be the first section of one page. And then you just move on. Often a textbook will have an outline of the chapter somewhere, and that's great. Don't copy it again. I mean, you know where to look. But use it to start with, and then make your own outline possibly of even fewer words. Just main points. And then make yourself remember the rest. All right, mapping or 3D outline. Now, anybody start recognizing this stuff? Yeah. let's see, I kind of call it cluster bombing. You get your main idea in the middle. And then as you're making connections, you're drawing the lines. And these are totally reduced notes. This is if your mind is getting the information really well, and you can go ahead and stick it all in there like that. If you need to do rereading, you might have to put in more words to start with, or maybe not use this system at all. It just depends. Give it a try for whatever. If it's working, great. If it doesn't, try a different system. Okay. How to take great notes in class.
Step 1, don't write down facts. Write down conclusions. Don't worry about capturing every single thing your teacher is saying. Spend more time listening and trying to understand the lecture. When you do start writing, format your notes as a series of questions posed by the teacher's lecture and fill in your own answers. For example, question, what is the central theme in Romeo and Juliet? Conclusion, more than being a tragic love story, Romeo and Juliet is about the consequences of deeply held grudges. This way, you're recording the importance of what the teacher is saying and not just raw facts. When you do need to include data, add only the most important points under each question. This is the evidence for each question's answer. Step 2, use colored pens. Yeah, that's right. This will help you remember your notes visually. Also, if you establish a set template for your notes, you'll be able to take them more efficiently. Write questions in red and definitions in blue, conclusions in green. Step 3, review your notes. Don't relearn them. Spend at least 10 minutes organizing your notes after class. If you want to test your comprehension, try teaching the material to a classmate. This will be a great marker to see if you've actually learned anything. Note-taking is a valuable life skill that doesn't lose its utility when you graduate.
And thank you very much for attending.